Focus. Oh, they go bonnet right there. See,
yes.
I'm feeling it. All right. So, what your name's Danielle from the
Yes, sir.
profile?
My profile is I am Danielle Adrian.
Okay. Okay. How you doing, Danielle? So,
I'm good.
what's your point of view on it?
So I'm the one that shared. I think if there's toxicity in that relationship, and that is the reason why you were an ex, then no, there's no reason for us to continue contact. There's no reason for us to maintain friendships because there's a reason you're an ex. I have very few experiences where I maintained connections with an ex after. One of the situations I can think of, we were friends before and we tried a relationship and it just did not work. Yeah. And we remained friends after. And I think the reason we were able to remain friends is because we knew each other prior to testing the waters. We grew up together. We knew each other's backgrounds. So it was easy to maintain that after. But in the sense where we're dating and we realize this doesn't work, I think we owe it to ourselves to move on because there's something in that you needed to learn. And if you keep a hold of that person, sometimes you're not really learning that lesson you should have learned in the first place. And the more you hold on, in my opinion, there's always a chance where you may double back and you're still not learning if you're doubling back. So at some point you have to let it go and move on.
No, I totally agree with that. And I think if it, like you said, if it's a toxic scenario, chances are that person, if is connection left to be had, that person will try to manipulate that connection, especially if it wasn't mutual. Like if you left due to the other person being toxic, chances are they still want to be in the relationship. So they'll use any thread, connection, freight wire, any kind of way to weasel back and have that connection. And that's why, you know, the other night I was talking about a friend of mine who I had to help her get out of a relationship. Like when she told me about a relationship that she was in. We had caught up after a while. She had been in a relationship for 2 years. And when she was in it, but when she was describing it, I was like, so you're getting like none of your needs are met. You don't even know where this person lives yet. He's got this baby mom situation that he's kind of mixing with her, but then you're providing all of this support, you know, to him, these resources to him. You're straining yourself for this person that's not even providing you basic, basics. And then so, you know, but so I said this because I got the feeling that she wasn't trying to leave, or she didn't feel strong enough to really leave like that, or she had that hopeful mentality that he was going to change. Maybe I'm like, look, you 2 years in, it's going to change. It's going to get worse. That's how it's going to change. So I said, you know, I gave her a deadline. I said, look, you're going to break up. It was like in August. I said, you got until the 31st to break up with this dude, and I'm going to call you the day before, and then I'm going to call you. I want you to tell me when you're going to do it, and I'm going to call you after it's done. So I want to confirm that you're going to do it, and then I want to be able to talk to you afterwards, because that, just like when it comes to toxic people and manipulators, usually after you break it off, it throws them off. So then they start pressing the guilt buttons, and they it's like the last ditch effort to keep that connection. And I didn't want her to fall into that, you know, mode to where, you know, he's still calling and then she goes right back in. So I had to intervene, and I had to be the voice to kind of keep counteracting what he was saying. And now she's in a relationship, you know, she's with a different person. She's doing really well in it, but it's like that I say that to say it can be very difficult, like you were saying, unless you sever those ties.
And a big piece of it sometimes, it truly is, and I can say this because I've been there, it's a self-esteem thing. Like, you're holding on even if you're not in a relationship with the hopes that if I stick around as a friend, if I stick around as a connection, at some point, maybe they'll see that I'm good enough. Maybe they'll want to test the waters again, or maybe they'll miss me enough to make it work.
Mhm.
And it's because you don't see in yourself what you should see. You don't see how valuable you are, that you don't need to stick around and wait for somebody to see what you're worth. Move on and let it come to you.
Right, right, and that's very important because I try to have people do the internal work first, and get to that point of not needing, not feeling lack,
Right.
not feeling incomplete or feeling a void, because that's how you're easily manipulated. So when these certain people can sniff out a low self-esteem
Yes.
individual. They can almost
Yep.
like they have a heat seeker, like the predator. You could tell by
Right.
somebody's temper, if they're a rescuer, if they have low self-esteem, low confidence, if they have a poor self-concept, like wherever the holes are, they plug right
That's
into
what I'm
those
saying.
like a parasite. Um,
Right.
Now let me ask you this, before
Yeah.
I go. Like, you mentioned there being a difference to where, like, a friend, if you start off with a friendship, you try it out, doesn't work, there still can be something said to maintaining that friendship. Now,
Right.
let's say you for example, you have, was that a real life situation where you had a
That was.
and cool. So are you single now?
I am separated now, actually.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Now, how would you handle if you had a new relationship and they had an issue with you connecting with that friend because there was a it became romantic? Would you budge on that? Would you stand firm in keeping that person because that's your friend, or would you be able?
So
Yeah, talk about
it's
it.
listen, it's a two-sided coin, but the reality is, if you, in my opinion, if you're serious about your relationship and you want to see where it goes, I think you owe it to that person to give them the respect to, I won't say end that friendship, but you may need to back off because there may be something that that person maybe either sees that you don't, or there's an insecurity that they need to work through. And I'm not saying you bend with everyone's insecurity, like that is something that other person needs to work on.
Right.
But if you are truly serious about your relationship working, I think you need to put the shoe on the other foot. Like if it were me and I'm dating someone and he has a very close friend that I knew they had history, it would
Mm,
make me a little uncomfortable, whether I'm secure in myself or not. Sometimes you just need to be respectful of someone else's feelings. And I do think there comes a point where, as an adult, you need to have those conversations. And if
yeah.
you want a relation, not everyone is going to be okay with that friendship, knowing that there was romantic history there. And
Mhm.
you have to be respectful of that person's feelings.
I I hear that. I hear that. So if you were in a situation where you felt like it was gonna become serious, you would
Hmm.
strongly consider respecting their feelings as far as the other person. Now,
Absolutely.
and
I think you have to.
you would do a full cut, like full cut off. Like, how
Now,
far?
see,
You see what I'm saying?
I
Because look,
can't say full. I think we'd have to talk about it because if I'm using my situation,
yeah,
this person I was friends with literally from maybe I was like 5 years old. So this is
right,
someone that knew me my entire life. So it's hard
right,
to say full cutoff, but if there were aspects of the relationship, let's say we met up for coffee every week, or there were things that were just too much for that person to handle, I
yeah,
do think respectfully you may need to really think about that, because if anyone comes across your path and everyone that comes across your path feels that way, you can't tell everybody, no, I'm not cutting this person off. You're not with that person. So yes, they're
right,
friends, but at some point, if you are truly serious about dating someone or you see it going a lot further, you do have to take that into consideration.
right, right. And like, and I ask you this knowing that it's very difficult to come to a one answer on that, because it's a tough
Yeah.
situation. But I just want to get your input on that, because you're right. I mean, cutting off somebody you've known since 5 is almost cutting off a fraction of who you are,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of nostalgia when it comes to that. A lot of built-in memories that,
Right.
it's almost like you would be penalized in a way because you're being, even
Right.
though you didn't do anything. You okay? You want to say hi? No.
Hi,
You
Judy.
want to say hi? She getting shy now.
It's okay.
But yeah, so I think that that you make a lot of valid points with that, and it's something that you know, although I'm not in a relationship now, it's something that, you know, down the line
Right.
I would have to be ready to discuss. And there's different, and like you said, it's a conversation. So there's varying levels of comfort.
Right.
I don't think
Right.
if you found some, and I was just judging off speaking with you and how intelligent you are and balanced you I feel like you are, you wouldn't have to
Well,
be in
thank you.
a situation, no problem. A situation I don't feel like you would choose somebody who would be all or nothing. You do, you know, I think you would connect with somebody who's able to have that continuum of
Right.
conversation so that it's not black and white, but it's like, okay, let's find a resolution that we both feel comfortable with. And because, you know, it does come down to security, I think, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And the more imbalanced that insecurity is, the more they try to shut doors in order
Right.
to find that security externally.
Right. But the reality is now I can say that if I were to find someone, I'm able to have those conversations. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I prefaced that before. It took a lot of work for me to get there because I was that girl who was insecure and latched on to people. So when some of those requests were made, I thought it was normal and I thought it was okay. And I let a lot of people go, or I did things that just felt uncomfortable for my spirit,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to hold on to people that I knew I shouldn't have, but I felt like this was all I was worth. So I think it's important to know when you make those choices sometimes, if you're not doing it from a place where you value yourself or doing it from a place where you truly know who you are and what you deserve, then you may sometimes make those rash decisions where you're allowing someone else to dictate and do things that may not necessarily work for you or may
Yeah.
not be healthy in a relationship.
Exactly. And like I try to, what I found is when you boil a lot of these insecurities. Yeah. All right, we're almost done. Um, when you boil a lot of these insecurities and a lot of these issues down, I find that it almost always goes down to fear. When you boil it
Yeah.
down to its smallest atom, right? Because at its base, we do a lot of things like with the fear that maybe, okay, sometimes we stay in things that are toxic because of the fear that we won't find anything better, because of the
Yeah.
fear that we don't deserve anything better, for the fear that there's nothing better exists, for the fear
Yeah.
that the scarcity mindset to where it's all taken. So I have to accept.
Latch on.
Right, right. It has to. I have to accept
Mhm.
50% of my checklist because 100 doesn't exist, 90 doesn't exist,
Right.
80, all the 80s are taken, you know what I mean? So let me shout out to Toya and Sweet Talk podcast. I see y'all in here. But and so that's not gonna go anywhere unless you manage those fears and are at a point where you can balance yourself internally. You can balance yourself internally.
Mhm.
And that for anybody listening, just check the link in my bio. I have a lot of resources when it comes to that because I believe that it comes from a lot of different categories. In the realm of psychology, that's that's where it starts. And I think a lot of
Right.
people, you know, they may go to therapy for other things, but when it comes to their relationships or whatever, they just feel like that's just how life is, or
Right.
you know, I just to keep attracting these different types because it's their fault, or there's no good men, or there's no good women, or you know what I mean. And that's an external view. So there's a lot to be said for just doing the work, and I feel like you have a grasp on, you know, a lot of that self awareness from over time. It sounds like.
It's taken me some time, but it's become necessary. And ultimately, that's why I am in this situation. It was a hard choice to make,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to make that choice to walk away from a marriage because I wasn't getting what I deserved. I wasn't getting what I needed. And I was settling for fear that this is it. This is all that I'm going to get. This is what's there. Let me make it work. But deep down, when you know there's better, and even if better means I'm by myself for the duration or for God knows how long, you just know what you're settling for isn't enough, then you definitely have to make those tough choices and start doing the internal work.
Well, what got you to that point, and how long were you married for?
Oh my God. So 7 years. Um, ultimately,
Seven.
yeah, 7 years. And about 3 years ago, things just hit the fan, and I was accepting subpar behavior when it came to infidelity, lying, and then just not stepping up to the plate to be a partner. I was pulling the majority of the work when it came to everything, finances, the kids, the house, but for sake of saying I'm married and I have my family and it looks picture perfect, I sucked it up, I think, for as long as I could until it got to the point where deep down I would come home and sit in my car and not want to go inside. And I knew at that point enough was enough. Like if my home
Mm-hmm.
can't be my solace, if that isn't my place of peace, if your very presence just makes me uncomfortable and it's not that you're doing anything, my spirit just wasn't at rest. I
Mm-hmm.
knew then that it was time to go. Like if I can't be with my partner and be with this person and my spirit is at peace, that was it for me. Like I'm not sleeping, I'm not comfortable next to you, the
Mm-hmm.
energy in the home shifts. Like those are physical things that sometimes we don't pay attention to that we need to pay attention to. If I can't lay there and peacefully sleep, or my stomach gets tight and there wasn't anything happening, there wasn't, physical abuse, there wasn't any of that, but my emotional needs weren't being met, the partnership wasn't being met, those things started to become too much, and I ultimately had to decide, are you better off by yourself or are you better off in this marriage? And that is when I chose myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Easter Sunday testimony right here. Like that's some something something serious. No, no, I respect that to the utmost, and I do a lot of different points I wanted to intervene, but I definitely had to let you rock because that's important information just to everybody being able to listen. And the fact that you approached that crossroads in your life. And I know what sitting in the car not wanting to, like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been there with jobs I hated. So
Yeah.
imagine
Well, yeah.
imagine if that's your home life. Like that's what you were
Yeah.
in. That was your real life situation to where your home. And like you said, the home should be, the HQ, the headquarters should be the the point of peace. Because if you're,
Right.
first of all, if you're gonna be in a relationship, period, it's to benefit, right? It should
Right.
benefit you in some way. Now when that's another source of strain, you're supposed to catch that when you leave the house. That's the war zone. So when you
Mm-hmm.
leave, you get in the car, you become whatever you are, whatever industry you're in, whatever role you
Right.
play in your job. You fighting bills, you fighting stress, you fighting policies and changes and all of that. And when you come home and you lay down, you eat whatever, and you spend that quality time with that person, that's supposed to be your recharge station. Now,
Right.
when the world's on fire and your house is on fire, it's
Mm-hmm.
one of those crossroads where
Yeah.
that you've experienced, where you have to honestly say, am I better just running at least if it's just me, I won't
Right.
stress myself out. Like
Right.
so in a regaining of control and reestablishing d- direction over your emotional just incoming,
Mm-hmm.
you found that it was better to leave. And because being burned alive just for the sake of being able to say you're in something, I've
Right.
seen that level with certain people where the mentality is, okay, it's being in a relationship is better than being single. Not being in a
Yeah.
fulfilling, you know, healthy bond relationship is better than being single. Just being in some.
Right.
I don't want to be single alone by myself, whatever. Too many demons to face, too much, too much connotation around being
Man,
single.
yes.
I don't want to face myself to, you know what I mean? Like, so, and that's why I say, my cousin's in here. What's up? That's why I say, you know, you have to face and deal with yourself, because if you run around trying to chase counterparts to mask the ability or the inability to be able to work through your own demons, that's a
Mhm.
problem. That's a never ending cycle, and you give toxic people, manipulators, control over your emotions and control
Yeah.
over your life, because as you know, and as you stated, emotional pain becomes physical pain, and
Yeah.
physical pain becomes health conditions, and ultimately it can cause you to be in a really bad situation, health wise. Upstairs now. All right, we're going. So I just wanted to get that up. Really, really great